The purpose of this tutorial is to demonstrate how to use range names in Microsoft Excel 2003. Oftentimes when we work with spreadsheets, they can become quite complex. In fact, in this example here, we have a series of cells that contain data related to month 1, month 2, month 3, and so on and so forth across 4 different divisions. Now often what we want to do is when we have a lot of data on our spreadsheet, we want to take and maybe designate certain cells to name something, or rather to mean something. In other words, we might want to say here that for month 1, instead of referring to these cells as C7 through C10, maybe what we want to do is name these cells. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up here to what we call the name box up here in the upper left hand corner. And I'm going to name these cells month 1. I'm going to hit the enter key after I type in the name. And so what we can do here is refer to these cells not as C7 through C10, but rather as month 1. Now you can imagine how useful this can be if we can start using these range names in formulas. In fact, that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to do a summation of this month 1 information. And of course, I can select these cells and get the information into the formula. You can also manually enter in C7 through C10 in this case. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use our newly defined range name for this column and do a summation on that. And in fact, that's what we get right here. And so if you notice up here in this formula, we're doing sum month 1 instead of sum C7 through C10. And so we can do that for the rest of these cells if we want to. In other words, we can say, all right, we want to name this column's worth of information month 2, and so on and so forth. And we could do a summation on this column and use the month 2 designator and so on and so forth. So range names then basically make it easier to navigate through a spreadsheet, to reference cells, to do computations on cells using actual names of cells instead of the actual cell designations that we've traditionally used in the past. Now, as you can imagine, this could become quite complex. In other words, we could decide that we want to name these cells month 3, and these cells month 4, month 5, and these cells division 1, division 2, and so forth. And so you can imagine that this could become quite complex. And so what Excel allows us to do is when we have a whole bunch of range names defined, we can go up here to the Insert Name menu and do a paste, and then do a paste list. And what this does is that this tells us what range names we already have defined. And so if we had a dozen of these set up, when we would do the paste list, it would tell us what those are. And so this concludes the tutorial on how to work with range names in Microsoft Excel 2003.